The battle was over, and silence had taken the place of war. Smoke still rose from broken ships scattered across the surface of a quiet moon. The ground was blackened, the sky dim, and the cold winds carried the smell of fire and metal. Among the ruins, forgotten by both friend and enemy, lay a young girl, barely breathing, hidden under pieces of shattered armor and dust. Her name was Lyra. She was not fully human, not fully alien. Her father was from Earth, a kind-hearted diplomat. Her mother was a proud queen from the Varn Empire. But now, both parents were gone, and the galaxy seemed to have no place left for her. Lyra's golden eyes opened slowly. Her body was weak and her skin bruised. Her heart beat slowly, as if unsure if it should keep going. She remembered the moment everything fell apart, her mother's ship destroyed, her guards running, and her escape pod crashing into this dead place. She had called for help. She had waited. But no one came. Everyone thought she had died. Or maybe they didn't care. She was too human for the Varn, and too alien for the humans. Alone, she lay in the cold dirt, her silver hair tangled, her hands shaking. Her lips moved to whisper for help one last time. Her voice was so soft even the wind didn't hear it, but someone else did. Far above the moon, an old human scout ship moved slowly across the sky. Inside was Daniel, a mechanic from Earth. He wasn't a soldier. He wasn't rich or famous. He came to the battle zone only to find spare parts and forgotten tech. War always left behind broken things, and Daniel was good at fixing them. But what he found this time was not a machine. It was a girl. At first, he thought she was just another body. But then, he saw her hand move. He rushed toward her, his boots kicking up dust. When he pulled away the metal covering her, his heart stopped. She didn't look fully human. Her ears were slightly pointed. Her skin had a soft glow. Her eyes were strange but beautiful. For a second, Daniel hesitated. Could she be dangerous? Was she part of the enemy? But then she looked up at him. There was no hate in her eyes. Only fear, pain, and something else - hope. Daniel knelt beside her. "Can you hear me?" he asked gently. She blinked once. That was enough. He lifted her carefully into his arms. She was light as a feather. She didn't speak, but she didn't resist. He wrapped her in his jacket and carried her back to his ship. Every step felt heavy, but his heart was sure he couldn't leave her here. Wouldn't. Inside the ship, Daniel laid her on a soft chair and checked her wounds. He didn't have real medical tools, but he did what he could. He cleaned the cuts, gave her water. She looked at him like she didn't believe he was real. No one had helped her before, not like this. "Why are you helping me?" she finally whispered. Daniel gave a small smile, because no one else did. She closed her eyes, but a tear slid down her cheek. She had waited so long to hear a voice. That wasn't angry or cold. For the first time in many days, she felt safe. Outside, the stars were quiet. The world still believed Lyra was dead. But in one tiny ship, a new story had begun. The half-human princess, left behind by all, was no longer alone. One human had found her, and everything was about to change. Daniel sat in the pilot's seat, eyes focused on the dark space ahead. The ship was old, slow, and not built for rescue missions. Still, it was all he had. Behind him, Princess Lyra lay wrapped in a soft blanket, her breathing still shallow. She hadn't spoken much since he found her. But her eyes followed his every move, curious, alert, and full of quiet fear. Daniel took a deep breath as he started the engine. The controls shook gently. He glanced at the radar. So far, no one had noticed them. The moon where she had been left was far from any major route, which gave them time but not safety. He needed to get her far away before anyone realized she was alive. As the ship lifted off, Lyra's eyes widened. The stars returned to her view, but this time, she wasn't looking at them from a broken escape pod. This time, she was moving slowly, gently toward safety. "Are you okay back there?" Daniel asked without turning his head. "Yes," she said softly. "Thank you." It was the first full sentence she had spoken since he saved her. Her voice was light but carried something. Heavy inside, like she was used to being ignored, like she was still unsure if kindness was real. Daniel smiled to himself. You don't have to thank me, just hold on. We're getting out of here. The ship moved past the broken battlefield. Wrecked ships floated silently, reminders of war and loss. Lyra turned her head away from the window. She didn't want to see the place where her people had left her behind. The silence between her and Daniel was calm, but it wasn't empty. It was filled with unspoken pain, and slowly, trust began to grow. After a few hours, Daniel walked to the back of the ship. Carrying a bowl of warm soup, he handed it to Lyra. She took it slowly, her hands still shaking. I'm sorry, she whispered. For what? He asked, sitting across from her. For being part of all this. For being different. Daniel looked at her. Not the one who started a war. Lyra lowered her eyes. No, but I was still part of both sides. And neither of them wanted me. Daniel stayed quiet for a moment. Then he said, Well, I want you alive. That's enough for now. Her eyes filled with tears, but she smiled. It was small and broken, but it was real. As they continued through space, Daniel and Lyra began to talk more. He told her about Earths, about blue oceans, green forests, and music played under open skies. She listened carefully, like every word was a gift. In return, Lyra told him little things about her life as a princess. She had lived in grand rooms and spoken to leaders, but she never felt free. She was always being watched, always being judged for her human side, for her alien side, for never being fully one or the other. One night, as they sat near the observation window, Lyra asked him, Why did you help me? Daniel leaned back in his chair. Because when I saw you, I didn't see an alien or a princess. I saw someone who was scared and left behind. I've been there too. Lyra looked at him with soft eyes, but no one else came. I did. He replied, and that was the truth. In a galaxy full of silence, one voice had answered, a world full of people who turned away. Well, man had reached out. The stars moved slowly outside the window, shining like quiet promises. Lyra no longer felt like she was falling. She was being carried not just through space, but toward a new future, one step at a time. One human at her side. The ship floated quietly through the stars. Outside the windows, everything was calm, but inside, questions were rising. Daniel had never asked Lyra about her past, not directly. He didn't want to pressure her, the more time they spent together, the more he saw it in her eyes. She was carrying something heavy, something more than just the pain of being abandoned. One morning, while Daniel checked the ship's power systems, he noticed Lyra standing near the back wall, looking. At her reflection in a piece of metal, her fingers slowly traced the line of her jaw, where a thin silver mark glowed faintly. He walked over and asked gently, Is that a scar? She looked at him, unsure for a moment. Then she nodded. It's not a scar. It's a key. Daniel frowned. A key. Lyra took a deep breath. Inside me, there is something. My mother and father created it before the war. It's a special code hidden in my DNA. A peace code. If activated, it can open the vaults that store ancient knowledge technology. That could end all wars. Or it could be used to control galaxies. Daniel's eyes widened. He had expected pain. He had expected loss. But not this. Does anyone else know? He asked. They knew before, Lyra said quietly. That's why both sides wanted me gone. Some feared the power I carried. Others wanted to use me. But when the war started, they forgot about peace. And they forgot about me. Daniel sat down beside her, felt the weight of her words. She wasn't just a lost princess. She was a living secret, key to something powerful. Now, that he knew it wasn't just her life in danger. His was too. You shouldn't have told me, Daniel whispered. Now I'm a target. Lyra looked away. I'm sorry. But Daniel shook his head. No, I'm not angry. I didn't expect this. They sat in silence for a few minutes. Then Daniel stood up. We need to keep moving. We'll hide in the asteroid field. It's not safe to stay in open space anymore. Lyra followed him to the front of the ship. Her hands were shaking slightly. She had always known the day would come when someone would learn the truth, but she hadn't expected to feel safer afterward. Somehow, sharing the secret made it feel lighter. They entered the asteroid belt and shut down most systems to hide from radar. The ship moved slowly between large rocks, using shadows for cover. Daniel didn't speak much. His mind was busy planning. Thinking, worrying. That night as Lyra slept, Daniel sat near the ship's radar panel. A small beep sounded. A single rogue drone had passed through the area. Didn't stop, but Daniel knew what it meant. Someone was searching, and they were getting closer. He turned toward Lyra, who was resting peacefully for the first time in days. He couldn't let her be captured. Not now. Not ever. The next day, Daniel taught Lyra how to use basic ship controls. It was quick to learn. Her fingers moved over the buttons like they had done it before. She smiled for the first time in a while, and Daniel smiled back. "You're good at this," he said. "I had lessons when I was younger," she replied. "They were always for show. This feels real." Daniel nodded. "This is real. And we're in this together now." The stars outside were endless, and their path was full of danger. But in that small ship, trust was growing stronger. The princess had a secret, and the human had a heart strong enough to carry it. They didn't know what was waiting ahead, but they knew one thing for sure. They were not alone anymore. The stars outside seemed peaceful, but Daniel knew better. The closer they got to the neutral zone, the more dangerous the journey became. Behind them was a war-torn past. Ahead, uncertain futures waited. Beside him sat a girl who could change everything. Lyra stood near the window, her arms crossed, deep in thought. The silver mark on her neck still glowed faintly. Her eyes were filled with both fear and strength. Oh, she wasn't just a princess anymore. She was a symbol, one that people would fight over. One that some wanted to hide forever. Daniel sat at the control panel, checking the ship's fuel and systems. They had enough to last a few more jumps, but not much more. He knew they had to move fast. Suddenly he heard her soft voice behind him. "Daniel, I think we need help." He turned around. "From who?" "I know someone," she said. "Anne. Old friend of my father's. She works with the neutral worlds now. Her name is Mira. If we can find her, maybe she can protect us. Maybe I can speak to the council." Daniel frowned. "The council? Do you think they'll believe you?" "After everything that happened?" Lyra looked down. "I don't know, but I have to try." Daniel leaned back in his chair. He felt the weight of the decision pressing down on him. Helping her wasn't just about kindness anymore. It was about risking everything. If the wrong people found out who she was and what she carried, they would hunt them both. And he wasn't a fighter. He was just a mechanic with an old ship and a good heart. Still, he looked at Lyra and saw something he couldn't ignore. Hope. She hadn't given up. Even after being abandoned, even after nearly dying, she still believed in peace. "All right," he said at last. "Let's find Mira." A small smile touched Lyra's lips. It was quiet but full of feeling. They sent a hidden message, using a coded channel. Daniel hoped Mira was still out there and still willing to help. Hours passed with no answer. Then finally, a reply came. It was short. "I'll meet you at Beacon 7. Come alone. Trust no one." Daniel set the coordinates and prepared the ship. Lyra sat beside him, watching every step. She was nervous, but ready. As they entered jump space, the ship shook gently. Blue light filled the windows. Daniel glanced at Lyra. She looked calm on the outside, but he could see her fingers trembling. "You okay?" he asked. She nodded, just thinking. "About what?" She looked at him. "About how one person can change everything. I used to think I was just a mistake, a child born between two sides that hated each other. But now I think maybe I was meant to survive. Maybe for this reason." Daniel didn't say anything. He just reached over and gently placed his hand over hers. It was a quiet moment. No promises. Just understanding. When they arrived at Beacon 7, the place looked empty. It's an old station floating in the dark, forgotten by most. but Daniel guided the ship to the landing port. As they stepped outside, a tall woman in a gray cloak was waiting. "Mira?" Lyra asked. The woman nodded. Her eyes softened when she saw Lyra. "You're alive?" Lyra nodded. "Because of him." Myra looked at Daniel, then back at Lyra. "Then we don't have much time. The galaxy is about to change, and both of you are right in the middle of it." Daniel took a deep breath. He didn't ask for this, but now that he was here, he wasn't backing down. Not while Lyra still had hope. Everyone left wounded and abandoned half-human alien princess to die, until one human found her. Now they journey across broken worlds to spread a message of hope. Daniel's ship landed hard on the surface of a damaged mining colony. The place looked like it had once been full of life now. It was just shadows and silence. Buildings stood half-broken, wires hung like vines, and people walked with tired eyes. The air smelled of dust and metal. The war had touched this place too, and it never recovered. Lyra looked out the window. "This is one of the broken worlds," she whispered. Daniel nodded. "We need to fix the ship." Mira gave us the next location, but we won't get far without repairs. Their engines had taken damage during the last jump. A leak in the power lines was making the ship unstable. I had to land for parts. But landing here meant risk. The people on this world didn't trust strangers, and some sold secrets for food. They stepped off the ship, keeping their heads low. Lyra wore a hood to hide her face. Daniel carried a small toolkit and a list of parts. The market was dark, and crowded machines buzzed. People whispered, and hidden eyes followed them as they searched for supplies. A merchant with a long face and metal arms called out, "You're not from around here." Daniel didn't stop walking, just passing through, but the merchant's eyes narrowed. He looked at Lyra. "She looks familiar." Daniel stepped between them. "She's my sister." The merchant didn't believe him, but said nothing. Others were beginning to notice her too, her glowing skin, her quiet steps. Lyra could feel their stares. She gripped Daniel's arm tightly. They bought the parts quickly and started to leave. But before they reached the ship, a group of rough-looking men blocked their path. One of them smiled. "We know who she is." Lyra froze. Daniel stepped forward. "We don't want trouble. You already have it," the man said. "Do you know how much she's worth?" Daniel stayed calm. He reached into his pocket slowly. But before things got worse, a small voice called out from the side. "Leave them alone." Everyone turned. A child stood nearby, an alien boy with green skin and bright blue eyes. He looked young but brave. One of the men laughed. "Get lost, kid," but the boy didn't move. He walked straight up to Lyra and grabbed her hand. "This way," he whispered. Without thinking, Lyra and Daniel followed. The boy led them through small alleys and into an old building. The doors slammed shut behind them. Yeah, they were safe at least for now. The boy smiled. "I saw you give food to the old woman in the market. No one does that here. That's how I knew you were good." Lyra looked surprised. She had given her bread to a woman sitting alone earlier. She hadn't thought anyone noticed. "Thank you," she said softly. The boy shrugged. "My name's Nilo. You can hide here until your ship is ready." Daniel fixed the ship through. The night while Lyra stayed with Nilo, she helped him clean a wound on his arm and told him stories about the stars. The boy listened with wide eyes. "You're really a princess?" he asked. Lyra smiled. "Yes, but more important than that time, someone who believes in better days." Before they left the next morning, Lyra knelt beside Nilo. "Thank you for saving us." He nodded. "You're welcome." She gave him a small silver pendant from her wrist. "Keep this. When you look at it, remember, kindness matters." The ship rose gently into the sky. Lyra looked down at the broken world below. It was full of pain, but also full of people like Nyla people, who still believed in good. Daniel looked at her. "You okay?" She nodded. "Yes. We're not just running anymore. We're reaching people." That made all the difference. Everyone left wounded and abandoned half-human alien princess to die, until one human found her. Together, they now bring light into places long forgotten. The ship flew quietly through the empty parts of space, far from the crowded trade lanes and the eyes of the powerful. Lyra sat near the front window, watching the stars pass by like soft lights in the dark. Daniel was beside her, fixing a loose wire under the control panel. The ship still needed care, but it was holding together, just like the two of them. After the narrow escape from the broken world, they had grown even closer. Lyra no longer looked away when she spoke. She stood straighter now. Her voice had become steady. Daniel noticed it and felt proud not of himself, but of her. Suddenly, the radar screen blinked red. Daniel stood quickly. Something's coming, Lyra. Turned? Is it another drone? He looked closer. No, it's bigger. The screen showed a pirate ship hold, but armed. It was coming fast. They must have tracked our signal, Lyra said, her voice tense. Daniel pressed a few buttons. We don't have weapons, and we can't outrun them. We need to hide. We guided the ship toward a small gas cloud nearby. The cloud would block signals, but it was dangerous to fly through. The path was tight, full of electric storms and pressure waves. It's one wrong turn, and the ship could be lost. Are you sure about this? Lyra asked. No, Daniel replied. But I'd rather take a chance in the dark than hand you over. She didn't argue. She trusted him. Inside the gas cloud, everything turned purple and blue. The ship shook. Sparks flickered across the screens. Daniel's hands moved quickly. Over the controls, Lyra sat beside him, reading star maps, helping him stay on course. They worked as a team, calm, focused. The pirate ship followed, but slowly. It didn't know the cloud like Daniel did. He'd flown through similar ones back. In his early days, when he was just a delivery pilot, he turned to Lyra. We'll give them a surprise. In the back of the ship, Daniel had stored a few old decoy-signal fake signals used to trick trackers. He launched 3 of them in different directions. The pirate ship paused, confused by the signals. For a moment it stopped moving. Daniel smiled. Now, he flew upward, out of the cloud's top layer, into open space. The pirate ship chased the decoys instead, and within minutes, it was gone. Lyra let out a breath she had been holding. We made it. Daniel nodded, just barely. They sat in silence, hearts still racing. Later that night, Lyra stood by the window again. She held the silver pendant that Nilo, the alien child, had returned before they left. It to him, but he had placed it back in her hand and said, You still need this more than me. Daniel came beside her. You okay? She nodded slowly. I think so. She looked at him, her voice soft. Do you think it matters? Everything we're doing? Daniel didn't speak right away. Then he said, I think it matters too. The people who are watching. So the ones who still believe in something better. Lyra turned back to the stars. Then I want to keep going, not just to survive, but to speak. To stand in front of the council and tell them the truth about what I carry, about what peace could really look like. Daniel looked at her and smiled. Then that's what we'll do. In the dark corners of space, where fear still ruled, and hope was rare, one human and one half-human princess had just lit a tiny spark. And sometimes, one spark was enough to show the way. Everyone left wounded and abandoned half-human alien princess to die, until one human found her. Now, the galaxy listens as the once-forgotten rises to speak. The great hall of the Council of Worlds was silent as the doors opened. Tall pillars of polished stone reached up to a domed ceiling. Flags of many planets hung from the walls. Delegates from across the stars sat in curved rows, their faces mixed with hope and doubt. In the center stood Lyra, her silver hair shining softly in the light. Daniel stood among the crowd, heart pounding as he watched her brave the gaze of so many eyes. Lyra stepped onto the dais, her shoulders straight and her voice steady. She wore simple robes and no crown, no jewels, only the weight of her mission. She looked out at the assembly and saw rulers who once ignored her, soldiers who once left her behind, and people who whispered questions under their breath. She felt fear, but she felt something stronger too. She felt purpose. She drew a slow breath and began to speak. My people and I have suffered too long, Lyra said. Her voice echoed in the hall. I carry the promise of peace in my blood. My mother and father created a code that can end wars. But that promise means nothing if we do not believe in each other. We must give every life a second chance, every voice a place at the table, every child a future without fear. As she spoke of unity, some faces softened. A delegate from a desert world wiped a tear. A young envoy rose and nodded, but not all were moved. A stern leader from the Varn Empire folded his arms and stared. A human senator whispered to his neighbor and shook his head. Lyra paused, met their eyes, and held her ground. She did not shout. She did not plead. She simply spoke truth. There will be those who oppose change, she continued. They fear what they do not know. They protect power instead of people. But I ask you now, will you protect hope? Will you protect life? Let us use this moment to choose peace over pride, unity over division, and love over fear. A low murmur ran through the hall. Delegates glanced at each other. Some reached for data pads to cast their votes. Others sat back, torn between old loyalties and a new vision. Daniel watched Lyra's face, calm, strong, determined. He felt a swell of pride. That made his chest ache. When the vote was called, droids handed out glowing tokens. One by one, delegates placed them in a crystal urn. The urn lit up in shifting colors: reds for no, blues for yes. The colors blended until a soft purple glow filled the chamber. The head counselor stepped forward and spoke in a clear voice. By majority, we grant Lyra asylum. We recognize her as a living symbol of peace and the heir of a new tomorrow. A cheer rose from some corners of the hall. Tears fell on many cheeks. Lyra closed her eyes, whispered thank you, and turned toward Daniel. He gave her a small, proud nod. In that moment, she knew she was no longer alone or unwanted. After the meeting, Lyra walked through the corridors with Daniel at her side. People bowed to her. Children ran forward to touch her hand. Journalists called out in wonder. Never again would she be hidden. Never again would she be ignored. The galaxy had heard her voice. High above the dusty plains of the moon where she first nearly died, a new dawn broke. One human had found a wounded princess. Now the stars themselves listened to her, and maybe, just maybe, the light of hope would spread across every broken world. Ask ChatGPT.